do not bring NATO close to my borders. We've decided to say no, right? Because the leader of NATO turned around and said, "Oh well, you know, I said to Putin, no, hell no, we're not doing that. Who is to tell us what to do?" And now the young men who are in Ukraine fighting, they've died upon a guy's mouth from NATO saying, "I'm not going to let Putin tell us what to do." That's what them young men are fighting for, and they've died upon that, right? And I think this is disgraceful for Britain to keep pushing the Ukraine into a war which they know themselves.
We're not pushing Ukraine into a war. Then why do you think we are pushing Ukraine? Ukraine is at war because they were invaded by Russia. We're not pushing Ukraine into a war. They're in a war that was not of their own making or creation or of their own desire. They are in it. They are being attacked even as we speak, aren't they? All the time, day in, day out. So to say it's disgraceful... Well, hang on a minute, because you just said... You said it's disgraceful.
Let me explain.
But we haven't, have we?
Okay, let me explain.
Well, briefly,
right? If I've said to you, do not expand close to my borders, right? And I've said, my next door neighbour, please do not let him...
Yeah, you already said that. You've said this. Yeah, I'm going to move on because, sweetheart, you've said it, and we heard you the first time. It was very... You said it clearly. We get your thesis. Not sure many people will agree with it, but I'm certainly giving you the chance to explain, and thank you very much. Let's go to John in Hammersmith. Hello, John.
Hi. It's astonishing to me to see the amount of pro-Russian rubbish that's coming through the airwaves, given the preponderance of evidence against Mr. Putin for his depredations and appalling disregard of humanity.
Yes, I'm quite interested in the last caller's interpretation and where he would have come by that strange take on proceedings. I mean, it is, to me, quite curious that anybody would ring and say it quite like that, don't you think?
In listening to several months of this now, it's become apparent that there's a very familiar strain running through all of them. Peace and Russia's the good guys, and one has to wonder about the subversion tactics of the Russian foreign intelligence.
Yes, exactly. And the silos that people are in, getting just one kind of information pumped at them because they like that information, which is a very common way of receiving your news feed these days, isn't it? So, what example would you like to say? That's interesting. From why are people thinking what they're thinking? Instead of that, let's get to what you're thinking in terms of what's on the ground. What's your opinion? Should we provide them? What will happen if we do?
Which means that we really have one choice left to repeat the lesson that
is cutting disability benefits what you expect from the Labour government? Do you feel that we'd be punishing the most vulnerable? 0345 6060 973.
Says the Russian president must stop playing games over a potential ceasefire to stop Russia's invasion of Ukraine.
So this is the moment that the guns fall silent, that the barbaric attacks on Ukraine once and for all stop and agree to a ceasefire.
The ceasefire deal, which would stop the war for 30 days, has been proposed by the US and has Ukrainian support. Sir Keir Starmer says proposals will move into an operational phase after holding a virtual call with world leaders this morning. Robert Fox, defence editor for the Evening Standard, told LBC this afternoon there's no chance that British boots will be on the ground in Ukraine.
They're going to avoid a confrontation with Russia at all costs. That being said, they are determined to keep Ukraine in the field, to keep Ukraine able to continue activities as a sovereign, independent nation with its own armed forces.
France's health ministry says at least 9 Palestinians have been killed, including 3 local journalists in an Israeli airstrike. It says Hamas leaders hold ceasefire talks with mediators in Cairo. The Israeli military says it struck several individuals it identified as terrorists. 5 people have been charged in connection with the murder of a woman who was shot dead in South Wales. 40-year-old Joanne Penny died in Talbot Green last weekend. 1 woman and 3 men have been charged with murder, and the second one is accused of assisting the offender. A Russian container ship captain has been remanded in custody after being charged with gross negligence manslaughter. 59-year-old Vladimir Meltin was arrested after his vessel collided with a US tanker in the North Sea on Monday. 1 man is missing, presumed dead. 2 stranded astronauts are due to return to Earth on Wednesday after a replacement crew was sent to retrieve them earlier. NASA is using a SpaceX rocket to bring Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams back down from the International Space Station. They were due to take part in an 8-day mission but have been on board for 9 months now. President Donald Trump had this message for them earlier.
We love you and we're coming up to get you, and you shouldn't have been up there so long. The most incompetent president in our history has allowed that to happen to you.
LBC weather, most places dry tonight with clear spells and without winds. Clearer skies towards the southern parts of the UK where frost is also likely to develop. A low of -5. For Global Newsroom for LBC, I'm Darren Jackson.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Vanessa Feltz.
Lovely listener, welcome to the programme. If you've just joined us, here's a headline for you. 1 million to have disability benefit cut by Labour. Chancellor vows to get a grip on local bill. 1 million people face having their benefits reduced under a global welfare system. It means only the most severely disabled will qualify. Cost-cutting reforms due to be announced next week are set to deny payments to many people with mental health conditions and those who struggle with washing, dressing themselves, and eating. Changes to eligibility criteria have been estimated to hit about 1 million people and are set to apply to new claims and reassessments of existing claimants. Sir Keir Starmer has been criticised by Labour MPs for the £5 billion cut to sickness benefits, which he insists is needed to stop costs going through the roof. Ministers including Ed Miliband, Energy Secretary Angela Rayner, Deputy Prime Minister Lucy Palmer, Leader of Commons, have raised their concerns in Cabinet, which reason the Chancellor insisted yesterday the government must get a grip on the broken benefits system. The government's welfare reforms will include abolishing the work capability assessment and incapacity benefits and making the long-term sick prepare for work. Concerns focused on immediate cuts that will accompany these longer-term changes, and ministers are still wrangling with the budget watchdog about how much of the savings can be used to avoid further spending cuts or tax rises this month. So the question for you, lovely listener, who just heard the bill is only £65 billion a year, to increase to £100 billion over the next 4 years, relatively short time, huge increase. And the question is, do you think this is the right thing to do, to raise revenue, to stick in Rachel Reeves' £20 billion vacuum? You know, there's no money, she says, to the tune of £2 billion in debt. Is this the right to go for, do you think, too many people fictitiously in, simply grappling with something in life that's making them miserable and saying they have mental health issues, or do you think that they can't work, or so lazy that they can't face working, or really they could work, or come from families who've never worked, generations of work shy, you know, we used to call them, you know, dodgers and cadgers and all that kind of a thing. Do you really believe in that social security scroungers? That's the tabloid terminology. Do you believe there's an awful lot of that going on? So therefore it's quite right to cut sickness benefit, to get people to come in and be checked to see if they really can do it on their own power, get into a bar, get on the loo, get off the loo on their own when they really can do it. Or do you think it's demeaning, distressing, humiliating, and actually for the Labour government to focus on employing that wonderful second one doesn't sit comfortably with you? What do you think the Labour government ought to be all about? I do know that many times in the past, quite recently actually on television, I've been talking about this, that people talk about being summoned to be checked to see if they really are as disabled or as mentally ill as they say they are. And they say it's absolutely hangs over them. They can't sleep, they're worried and nervous, it's difficult to get to the place where they're going to be checked, they feel incredibly humiliated, embarrassed, worried, harassed, you know, all of it's horrible, and these are people who are very unwell in the first place. So are you on sickness benefit or disability benefit or some kind of benefit that might need to be checked? Might you find yourself and your benefit being reassessed? How do you feel about that fits you? 345 606 0973. And if you're lucky to be able-bodied or to be at the moment going through a relative period of mental equilibrium, so you're not plunged into mental health at any moment, maybe you think this is just uncomfortable, the wrong focus, the wrong target, maybe you just feel, particularly as we just discussed, the speaker going away and spending £250,000 of taxpayers' money on trips and jaunts and first-class travel and everything else. Maybe you think, well, these people are really not very well. Are they really the people that need to be the forensic target of checks to see if they're as ill as they say they are? Let's talk to John McDonough, founder and managing director of Recro Consulting, an employability and recruitment and training consultancy. John, so good to have you on the programme. What do you make of this? Is it the right focus?
Hi, good afternoon, Vanessa. Thanks for having me on.
Pleasure.
I think everything you said in the Labour plan is true. So this is a very, very complex situation.
Right.
I think, unfortunately, it might be in part driven by events. The government are going about this the wrong way, and there's the wrong focus. And there are a lot of serious long-term issues within this system that have never been addressed. I've been trying to address them for more than 15 years.
Please tell us what they are, because you know, lots of us will just be thinking one thing or another without really having information about this. So what should we be thinking about?
Well, the single biggest issue, I think, when we talk about public sector reform is public sector organisations, whether that's government departments or local authorities, doing something even when they know it isn't going to work. And that is unquestionably the situation here at the moment. And really, what they should do is press pause, which they probably don't want to do, but they need to press pause.
What isn't going to work? Reassessing people, or checking people, or trying to get money back, or what won't work?
The focus needs to be getting them into work.
Right.
And so there's a couple of questions here. How did we get here in terms of the benefit system and where we are currently? And are the same people who got us here really going to solve this?
Okay, how did we get here? Was it partly COVID? No? I can see your face. People, this is the radio, so people can't see you. Made a very wry face at me when I said, is it COVID?
So the term you were looking for earlier is intergenerational worklessness.
Okay.
And we did pilots on that a number of years ago, which were very, very successful. But DWP do not have a mechanism to learn, replicate, and scale. So the crux of this is does the quality of employment support matter that people are given? Now, obviously it does matter, but they are geared up in a way to operate that it doesn't matter. So a lot of the support that people reality. That's really uncomfortable for civil servants, and they don't want to go near that. So then it ends up in a too difficult box, and then you get a whole layer of resistance that doesn't want to report. Whereas if people were offered high quality help, how many of those could be in the work? How many people sitting there at the moment? You know, we've got the highest number of needs ever. Well, why aren't we helping?
So needs is not in education or employment. Those people just aren't working and aren't studying and aren't doing anything. The highest proportion that we've ever had, you say?
Yes, but what they're going to realise is the highest proportion of people who are on the sick and not fit to work. It's young people. And the biggest cohort of that is because of stress, anxiety and depression.
Right.
So,
I mean, we did have Tony Blair, didn't we, not long ago, a few weeks ago, saying that mental ill health is being conflated with just life itself, which can be tough. I mean, we've had to go through tough stuff, things happening, we're talking about it at the time, doesn't mean we're suffering from serious mental health issues, and the two things are being, clicked together in one great big bubble, but they shouldn't be. I wonder if you agree with that.
so yes, what I will also say is in 2013, the all-party parliamentary group on social mobility found that the system was the issue, and character and resilience were the biggest determinants to success. A lack of character and resilience is not an issue in conflict because we're often to be in conflict because kids stuck in bedrooms and smartphones and everything else. What do we do? Do we stand back and let that happen, or do we say, actually, let's give them some
Mentioned out of the bedroom and into work. How do you do that? What is the top sort of help that would make the difference?
So what we do is it's a combination of personal and professional development with recruitment, high quality recruitment expertise and coaching. So you've got some neuroscience, you've got stuff that people spend a lot of money on, sports psychology, courses, etc. And you know, why I said regular was I could say that was missing. So let's give it all people who are least likely to get near it and give them that proactive recruitment support, because if somebody's CV is a blank piece of paper, they're not going to get an interview. What we've got to do is change their state
Just really made my job quite easy.
I'm sorry to hear that. Thank you very much for ringing. It's an excellent call to kick off this particular discussion because somebody in this room some actual worry about this. Let's talk to Tony about to see how Tony. Thanks for ringing. Social work is coming through. I've got a new TV show starting. Blimey, I'm well nervous. It's the truth. I woke up at 3 o'clock this morning and I could not sleep a wink thinking about it. First of all, I was really excited and now I'm a bit nervous. But we'll see if we can. We'll see what's going on. Tell me about this, about disability benefits. What do you think is the right thing to do?
They gave me 10 points, which is 2 points short of it. So then I reassessed myself, went back to them, they still gave me 10 points. I got my mental health officer, I got my social care worker, everybody to write a report. They still gave me 10 points.
And what does 10 points get you? It's obviously insufficient, but what do you get for the 10 points?
You get standard living, I've got enhanced travel, standard living. I get standard travel for enhanced living. That's where I want to try and get the enhanced travel.
Yes.
But in other words, standard living.
Yeah.
Because basically I need to get my ends to me.
Okay, but they...
When it comes to getting work, I managed to organise a roti show with a friend. And this friend decided, because I was with my own company, doing a little
But Elon Musk says that he offered to bring the astronauts back 8 months ago, but the Biden administration shot down his offer because it would have made Donald Trump look good in the presidential race against former Vice President Kamala Harris. Let us discuss this with Dr. David Whitehouse, the space expert. Dr. Whitehouse, thank you so much for joining me. Very nice to see you. I mean, I just explain how you could think you're going into space for 8 days and you end up
anything goes in the American space effort. We can expect in the next month or so NASA to lose a lot of people, to lose a lot of budget, and Trump to orient the program away from going to the moon, perhaps, to going on to Mars. And that's, we see Elon Musk with Occupy Mars in his t-shirt all the time. So that's happening in the background. But I think that this blame embargo, and the kind of reporting back earlier, is typical Trump and typical Musk.
And may I ask, are you excited by the direction that space travel might be taking towards Mars? Does that interest you, and does that strike you as the right way forward with the space program? Do you think Musk and Trump are taking this in an unlikely and maybe unwise direction?
Well, part of the problem is politics, because when Trump in his first term said America to go back to the moon quicker, he expected them to go back on the moon by his second term. Now, because it's been delayed, China may well beat America in putting people on the moon. Now, I'm sure America will put people on the moon and set up a moon base, and that will be the main focus of their activity for the next 10 years as they develop the skills of living and working off planet. But certainly, what America doesn't want is to lose a race with China. So what they're doing, I think, is that they're saying that, okay, we're going back to the moon, but we've done that before. China's repeating what we did with Apollo 50 years ago. We're doing that, but our real goal is on Mars. That's where we're looking forward. It's going to take, don't believe Elon Musk when he says, we'll have people on Mars in a few years. It's going to take 10, 15, 20 years.
Why? Why is it going to take so long to get people to Mars?
Because Mars is so much further away, and it's so much of a bigger deal than getting to the moon. Because when you get to the moon, if things go wrong, you are a couple of days from coming back home. You're not too far away, and you've got backup. When you go to Mars, you are away from Earth for perhaps 3 years, and you are completely on your own, psychologically, physically, in terms of what you take, your resources, your consumables, your food, your recycling. Every single thing has to be taken with you. And that's a very tough. We don't know how to do that at the moment. Travelling to Mars will involve technology and rockets, and particularly people preparing themselves psychologically for the greatest isolation humans have ever experienced. That is not going to be done in a few years' time.
That sounds absolutely horrific. Would you wish it could be you, that you could be propelled forward through time and be Elon Musk's best friend, and he would say, Dr. David Whitehouse, it's you may go on, would you go?
Well, in a sense,
said it, but it is the truth. So I've got a brand new TV show starting on Channel 5. And at first I was just completely excited. That was my only emotion. Excitement, delight, joy, all the good stuff. And then suddenly I started to get thoroughly nervous and I can't sleep for nerves and all of that. And she's very sweetly said, don't worry, don't lose any sleep over your new show. It'll be amazing. You'll be amazing. And all sorts of other lovely things. Helena, thank you very much. Enormously appreciated. Let's get back to disability benefit being cut by Labour. Joe from Worthing says, on the subject of welfare reform, being a social worker, I see both ends of the spectrum. There are indeed, says Joe, very ill people who cannot work, most importantly mental health issues, but there are also people who are faking it. For instance, families claiming PIP, DLA for themselves and often for their children too, and then working cash in hand. These latter people often have more and better material goods than I can afford, working full-time in my relatively okay paid work. That's Joe. Phil said, it doesn't matter what the reason is, nobody should expect others to go to work to fund their lifestyle. Simply allow maximum of 1 week's support per year of NI paid, no further support. Archie says, so many of the problems of the disabled, Vanessa, arise from them living in a hostile environment. So what is Labour's answer? Make it yet more hostile. And this says all benefit claimants should be under constant review with regular reassessments. If they're truly eligible, nothing will change. Let's talk to Peter in Manchester. Peter, what's your perspective on this one? Thanks for ringing.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hi.
So I'm working in residential rehab for people with drug and alcohol issues.
Oh, yeah.
So, as you can imagine, we have a lot of people who come in on benefits already, and we also help them to claim the right benefits while they're with us.
Yeah.
Do you know, I agree with one of your text messages you just had. The disproportionate of people is so different. So, so say, for instance, a typical alcoholic has loads of call-outs to A&E, they're always getting ambulances, things like this.
Yeah.
The cost on society is massive, it's blocking up bed spaces. They come to us, we help them with their alcoholism, we hopefully help them to stay abstinent from that. But within that, they've got mental health issues, so we help them to claim it. So yes, it costs the government and it costs society money, but it's far less than the constant ambulance call-out, A&E's call-outs, things like that.
Right.
We have other people who come from the prison background, which £46,000 a year, again, not excusing what they've done. They've got paranoid schizophrenic, they've got all these sorts of illness. Again, we help them to stay clean from using substances, which then releases the burden on the taxpayer and society in general.
Yes.
But in turn, they're allowed to claim benefits because of their illness. Again, it costs us something. But, you know, we have to look at it in some instances. That if these people are costing up the taxpayer so much money and constantly going to prison, going to hospitals, coming into residential... Our residential rehab is £736 a week, what the local council pays.
Yes.
You know, so it's sometimes we have to look that either way these people are going to cost us money.
Yeah.
You know, and again, we have the disproportionate of people. We had a client in and we worked it out that he was on universal credit and he got the WRCA element, working related capacity, so he got £800 for that. He was on £790 for his PIP and he got a £300 care loan. So we worked it out and it was like, oh my God, this guy gets more money than me and I work.
And how unusual or usual is that, though? How much is this a guy gaming the system, or how much is this a frequent thing that somehow
20% unusual. So, 8 out of 10 people, I generally think, should be claiming the benefits who we engage with.
Right, okay.
2 out of 10 probably shouldn't. I took someone on assessment, I take quite a few people on assessment.
Yeah.
I can do the assessment paperwork in my sleep. And I remember this lad sat in front of me and he's telling his PIP assessor all these things what are wrong with it. And I'm sat there thinking, like, this is just pure lies. And he turns to me and says, that's right. And I turn around and said, actually, it's not. He can get in the bathroom himself. He can cook for himself.
Mm-hmm. And so,
you know,
and so, do you anticipate that, looking further into this, that bringing people in and saying, right, can you walk? Can you move? Can you do up your shoes and all that palaver, which I know lots of people find humiliating and very distressing, and they worry about what's going to happen, and worry about how to get there. You know, the whole thing shadows over their lives in a really sort of nasty, ominous way. But do you think that will weed out those who are, liars and those... No, because they'll just be acting their socks off, won't they?
Do you know what will happen? The people who are meant to get it, they will not get it because they don't know how to communicate and show that they should be getting it. The people who are just manipulative, you know, who know what to say, who know how to play the system, who have done it for many years before, will carry on getting it. You know, you have Dave, who's never had any issues with criminal justice. He's never been in and out of hospitals. He's just got, I don't know, his last leg. He's not had a lot of dealings with social services. He goes in a PIP assessment. He doesn't know what to say. He doesn't know how to communicate. So can he get in and out of the bath? Yes. But does he need to use an aid? Does he have to go in at a certain...
Hello.
Well, I'm on PIP and have been for the last year, but I really support the government's attempt to basically stop the free money train, which is basically taxpayer daylight robbery. I legitimately qualified for it, and I appreciate the money. Right? I'm not going to say no, if it's on offer.
Yeah.
But it's just a waste. I don't need it, and I think that many of the other 2.6 million people that are on PIP don't need it.
Do you mind giving me just a little bit more information about what it was that meant that you do qualify, just so we get the picture? Because otherwise we just don't know what you're talking about, why you've got it and why you don't need it and all of that.
I was from a lawyer, and I had the drug issues, and so it was basically through depression.
Right.
When I lost my job, so that was the background.
But when you say you don't need it, have you got another job now, so you don't need it, or why don't you need it?
It's a non-means tested benefit, so
right.
you can be on £5 million a year and still get your £300 or so a month. But the justification for PIP that's meant to kind of help those who need it to kind of facilitate the cost of their disability. It doesn't really wash for mental health issues, you know, and most of the new claimants, 33,000 a month new claimants on PIP, are mainly for mental health issues. How does being slightly depressed, how does that cost you more money? And why, if it does, why should the taxpayer fork out for it? It's just like...
Well, it's not... I mean, technically, it's not meant to be because you're slightly depressed, is it? You're saying that to minimise it. What it's meant to be is that you're debilitated by mental illness to the point where you need extra help, reinforcements and stuff that you can't do because you're so laid low by this terrible affliction that is really causing you terrible trouble. It's not meant to be a bit of mild depression.
I think that sometimes actually these assessments actually perpetuate the problem.
Right.
And in reality, I think most people that I know who have been on it or who are on it, they don't need it and they could do without it.
All right. Well, thank you, Henry. And nevertheless, you're going to continue to claim yours, you say. So thanks for the call. Let's talk to Patrick in Alton. Hello, Patrick.
Hi, Vanessa.
Hello. What do you think about this? Should they look into it and start cutting?
No, it's so complex with the appealing through RPIP. But I had a kidney transplant some 10 years ago, and the drugs that you take with it really do have an effect on your life. I'm heavily immunosuppressed, so life isn't easy. If I'm lucky enough to go to a concert or a cinema, you're going to pick up a bug and come back with that. But with that, I've got IBS, osteoarthritis, all sorts of pain problems.
And I was just thinking how great that you're alive 10 years after a kidney transplant. Yeah, this is all great, I was thinking. But actually you're saying it's terribly difficult, but obviously you're here, which is great. So we're ahead of the game with this one, aren't we? At least.
Yeah. I've lost the PIP now, so... and I've been through a divorce as well recently.
Never a good idea. I'm still paying for mine. It was 25 years ago. I'm not even joking. I'm not kidding. No joke. No. I'm surprised you can joke. That was a wry laugh there.
It was right.
That was a panto laugh that you managed to pull out of the band. Thank you so much, Patrick. I wish you well. Sorry for what we're going through. Let me tell you what we're going to be talking about after the break. We're talking about marriage. Rather than funny, I've just talked about divorce. I've talked about mine. Patrick talked about his. Both wiped out, cleaned out financially, ricocheting from the misery of it all. So here's the story in the papers today. Marriage is increasingly the preserve of the rich, with only 1 in 5 couples from the poorest backgrounds bothering to tie the knot. According to new research, barriers include the high cost of weddings and lots of others preventing poorer people from marrying. Have you put off getting married due to the cost? Or is there another reason why you don't want to get hitched? 0345 6060 973.
conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 5 o'clock, the Prime Minister's confirmed military leaders will meet in the UK next week to discuss plans for a peacekeeping force in Ukraine. Sir Keir Starmer says proposals will move into an operational phase after holding a virtual call with world leaders this morning. Speaking at Downing Street this lunchtime, he explained why the issue is so important to him.
Russia's appetite for conflict and chaos undermines our security back here at home in the United Kingdom. It drives up the cost of living, it drives up energy costs. So this matters deeply to the United Kingdom.
5 people have been charged in connection with the murder of a woman in South Wales. 40-year-old Joanne Penny was shot dead in Talbot Green last Sunday. LBC's Dan Wilson has more.
South Wales police say 4 of those charged, a man from Cardiff and 3 people from Leicestershire, have been charged with murder. The other is accused of assisting an offender. 32-year-old man was also arrested in Suffolk last night. He is the 7th person to be questioned over Joanne Penny's death.
At least 16 people have been killed in huge storms sweeping across much of the United States. The country's National Weather Service has issued multiple tornado and severe thunderstorm warnings across the south and the Midwest. Extreme weather conditions are forecast to affect an area home to more than 100 million people. 2 astronauts stuck in space since June are one step closer to home. A SpaceX rocket's on its way to return Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams to Earth from the International Space Station. They were only meant to be up there for 8 days, but have been there for 9 months now. Dr. David Whitehouse is a space expert and told LBC that being in space for that long will have an impact.
When you're in zero gravity, all sorts of things happen. Fluids in your body get redistributed. There's effect on your immune system, your endocrine system, your nervous system. Scott Kelly, when he spent almost a year there, said that when he came back, his legs were swollen, were bruised, he could hardly walk. It took him several weeks to actually get used to gravity again. But certainly you cannot spend a year in space and not expect to pay for it when you get back down on Earth.
And Ireland have kept their slim hopes of winning the Rugby Union Six Nations alive. They got a bonus point 22-17 victory in Italy to move to the top of the standings. LBC weather, many places dry with clear spells and light winds tonight. The clearest skies towards the southern parts of the UK, a low of -5. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Daryl Jackson.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Vanessa Feltz.
All right, lovely listener, a very personal question for you now. Are you married? Have you tied the nuptial knot? Are you hitched? Are you officially, legally wed? And if you are you rich? Are you wealthy? Are you upper class, upper middle class? Because here's the story, and I'd love to know what you make of this. Do get on the phone, 0345 606 0973. Getting married, isn't that what rich people do? Marriage is increasingly the preserve of the rich, with only 1 in 5 couples from the poorest backgrounds tying the knot. This is according to brand new research. Some 71% of children born into high-earning families in 2022 had parents who were married, compared with as few as 20% among the lowest earners. This means the marriage gap between the richest and the poorest has widened to a record 51%. This is according to a study from the Marriage Foundation think tank. But researchers said support for marriage in general remains consistent among all income groups, suggesting barriers such as the high cost of weddings are part of preventing the poorest people from marrying. If you look at babies born in 2022, the report found 71% of parents in the higher income quintile, which means earning £45,000 a year or more, were married, compared with 35% of those in the lowest income quintile, earning £14,000 or less, leaving a marriage gap of 36%. So are you married? Are you getting married? Are you planning a wedding? It's March now. You may be planning a June wedding. You may be ready to be a June bride. Or you may be assiduously avoiding being married. Were your parents married? Are your parents married? Do you come from a family where generations have not bother to get married all the time or not? And if you do, is it because you're so rich that you want to hang on to your money, your estates, your duck house, your moat, your butler's quarters, and therefore you don't want to marry someone in case they waltz off with half of it? Or is it because you come from a poor family and marriage is somehow out of the question? And is it all about the cost of the wedding, or is it other things? Is it something to do with what's expected in your social circle or what your peers are doing? What's going on with marriage? What about this headline? Getting married, isn't that what rich people do? Really looking forward to hearing from you on this one. If you're not married and it's not that reason, get in touch. Maybe you're not married because you cannot bear to confine yourself to just one other person when there's all that choice out there on Tinder and other sites which are available. Maybe there's just so much choice you can flit from one delightful and intoxicating partner to another in the course of just half an evening. So what on earth would you plight your troth to just one person for when you can spread your seed so thinly and so widely around these lucky recipients? What do I know about what the heck you're doing? I am divorced, as you probably know, not married, and I was bred to be married. It's all my parents wanted was for me to get married. So lucky they're dead, otherwise they'd be sorely disappointed. Anyway, we're taking calls about marriage. Are you married and rich? Are you married and poor? Are you unmarried? And if so, what is the reason? 0345 6060 973. Let us discuss this with Henry Benson, Research Director at the Marriage Foundation, who conducted this research. Hello, Henry. Thanks for joining me.
Or even Harry. Hello, Vanessa.
Oh, hello, Harry. How nice to see you. Tell me about whether you're surprised by this.
I'm not, because although this is new research and we've used the latest data from the Office for National Statistics, I'm not surprised because we've been looking at this issue of the marriage gap for years. You know, as you well know, and anybody who's been married knows, marriage is not a magic bullet, but it does massively stack the odds in your favour. I'm just finishing a PhD at the University of Bristol on exactly this subject. And I can show that if you get married as a parent, your chance of splitting up over the course of parenthood is about 25%. There's about 50 if you don't marry. So there's a huge difference. And so it makes an enormous amount of difference if you do get married. There's a huge psychology behind it. And it particularly matters if you're in the poorest sector of society. And I think you talked about the cost of weddings being the barrier. I think the reason why so few people in the lowest income groups get married is not to do with the cost of weddings. I think it's to do with welfare. You massively lose if your partner moves in with you, let alone marries you. And it's called a couple penalty. I've been talking about it for 20 years. And it's really nice to be able to talk about here. But essentially, if you move in with somebody, their income comes in with you and you get less benefits. And I think that's the real reason why so few people in the low income groups are married. And it's a huge cost to society as a result, because they're missing out on this chance of committing, or missing on of the opportunity of committing, which gives you more of a chance, not a guarantee, but more of a chance of bringing up your kids with two pairs of hands rather than one.
And do you think that something ought to be done about this, that something ought to be done in terms of benefits to make sure that you don't get penalised for getting married? As you say, marriage brings us stability. Those of us who divorce might really appreciate or realise it, but you say nonetheless it does. So therefore, ought the government to address this, or there to be a change which means you don't get financially penalised for marrying?
Yes, and it's an incredibly difficult problem to solve, because I want people to talk about it to start with, because it makes sense. If you're a millionaire and you're living with somebody who doesn't have a job, then if in theory, if you're in separate households, that person who's living off the income of the millionaire could be entitled to universal credit, and that would be wrong, clearly, and that's not what the system's designed for. But most people who are not getting married in the low end are genuinely not doing it because they know that if their relatively low income partner moves in with them, they stand to lose all their benefits. So it's a really difficult problem to solve, and I'm not sure I've got a particularly good answer. There is an answer. We should scrap the current marriage allowance, and we should spread it much more thinly but much more generously to people in their first 3 years of parenting. If they're married, young mother, first child, number 3, you could probably give them 3,000 quid a year, roughly, we reckon, which would offset an awful lot of this couple penalty. So there is a possible solution, but other people will have other better ideas.
See, I'm very interested in this, because I would have thought that if you were on a low income and you were married and you were in love with or loved somebody on a low income, you can't say when I copped off with you, you came in with a pair of socks and your record collection, and now we're getting divorced, you leave with your pair of socks and your record collection. You have to put something or other in a prenuptial agreement, so you have to give the person a 39 barnet at the very least, even if you can't stand them and they've never had a penny. So there would be, I think, an enormous inducement not to get married of any means, especially to anyone who's less wealthy than you.
Yes, I get that. I think the scenario is pretty fair. Watch people don't expect in the public services as well. Right now, most of the principles that you get into marriage, you get to be if there are ways of compromise. You can end during the course of marriage as far as possible, so you split the money in your room. I think that's the basic principle that you need to look at. If there's some barrier to marriage was we're abusing your money, then you won't get the wealthiest people being married.
That's why I was so surprised by this absolutely puzzling result. Harry, thank you very much indeed. Excellent to talk to Harry Benson, Research Director of the Marriage Foundation, concluding that marriages will arrange for people, particularly with men that don't fancy getting married because it will materially affect their marriage. I bet you it's not. I bet you there are other reasons. I bet you decided not to get married because ... Get on phone media and tell me what is the reason. Is it because you're just so desirable? So many options. You can't narrow yourself to one. Is it because everyone who's married that you know is desperately unhappy? So your unhappy marriages unraveling around you. So why would you put yourself in that position for? Is it because none of your family's ever been married? Someone else will get married? Is it the cost of a wedding? What's the reason why you're not married? Is it because someone's asked you? I don't really tell me that. I don't understand. It's 345 606 0973. Is it because you're rich? Is it because you're poor? Are there many other reasons why you're not married? Let's talk about this notice. There we go. Wedding expert, Vanessa from Hinged, which is a on the show. How are you? I'm right. It's like you're surprised or not by this idea that it's really rich and get married.
Goes up year on year, and we're currently on a 23,250.
Wow.
That's the average before wedding. Gosh, let's keep it off. But I will say that people often conflate the two. You don't have to have a wedding to get married.
True. And there are these expectations which seem to be almost imposed by God. That you have to have a certain kind of wedding breakfast, have to have the bubbly, you have to have the bridesmaids, you have to have this, this and this. But actually not necessary to have any of it, is it, if you don't want to?
Yeah, I'm on a mission to banish the concept of have to have from weddings. The only thing you should really have to do is sign your paperwork to be married. Everything else is optional, and the wedding is about celebrating your love and expressing who you are as a couple. So, but I think people, as I said, conflate them.
Tell me about weddings that you have been to, that you've written about, covered in
from the government. And the tax breaks that couples get when they get married do tend to benefit higher income couples rather than lower. So I do think more can be done by society to make marriage more accessible to people. But then I think for Hitch, we've been around for so long, we are pretty broad in our spectrum. We cover a huge range of couples, from people who literally just want to have a registry office wedding to those that plan 3-day affairs that cost hundreds of thousands of pounds. We see it all. And I think it's each to their own, and you can't really put a price on having your loved ones around you celebrating with you and celebrating love. It's up to you what you spend.
Well, what a nice way of putting it, and what a great call. Thank you very much indeed. Zoe Burke, the wedding expert, editor of Hitched, an online wedding planner. One voice can only do so much. But lots of voices can change the world. Whatever helping nature looks like for you, from spreading the word to becoming a member, or helping wildlife where you live. Find your flock with the RSPB, because together we thrive. Act for nature now at rspb.org.uk. The RSPB is a registered charity.
Meet Terry and Sue. When shopping for a new car, Sue likes to go online. Terry, he likes to do things around the field. Cheap in. So that's why they're heading to Stitch's new stores, where buying a car is no faff. Sue can chill and check out the website, while Terry tickles the dash of hundreds of cars. Watch out, Sue. You'll never get home now. With a 90-day warranty and 14-day money-back guarantee, Terry and Sue are Stitching. Buy online today or head to our store. Search Stitch Store for details. Mileage restrictions, terms and conditions apply.
It's time to scale up that fishmonger business, Alan. With free day-to-day online banking from Virgin Money, you'll be a big fish in no time. Now, Terry, catch of the day. Open Virgin Money's M account for business now. UK excludes NI, Channel Islands and Isle of Man. 18 plus fees apply for chat and international payments. Terms and exclusions apply. Backed by the current account switch service. Virgin Money is a trading name of Clydesdale Bank PLC.
Recruiters. Don't miss Recruitment Agency Expo at XL London on the 18th and 19th of March, featuring Deborah Meaden, Tim Campbell and top recruitment experts and suppliers. Get set to learn, innovate and outpace your competition. Register free at recruitmentagencyexpo.com.
This is LBC. Message from SFLs on WhatsApp now. 0345 60 973.
And this is Nathan from Worthing, who says, at a time when people are constantly moaning about not being able to get on the property ladder, why wouldn't you use money to set yourselves up for the rest of your lives together, rather than wasting it on one day for everyone else to enjoy? Marriage is totally outdated and an absolute waste of money. Debbie says, Vanessa, I've always thought that marriage should have a 7-year licence, and if you don't renew it, you're no longer married. Happy days. And Sarah says, your current guest is talking nonsense. I think marriage is on its way out amongst lower income groups because the quality of men is very poor indeed. Not just poor men, all men. Well, I wouldn't say that on the radio. I would never say that. Erase that from the record. Do we not have a delay where we pretend I never said that? What a silly thing to say. Just wondering question. The quality of men, says Sarah, is very poor indeed. I just think, she says, women are waking up to the fact that there is nothing in it for them. Women have their own money and they don't need to marry to increase their wealth. That includes benefits. Marriage works mainly in men's favour. It's always incomprehensible to a man that a woman should ever refuse an offer of marriage. A man always imagines a woman to be ready for anybody who asks her. Austin, got it right, says Sarah. All right, taking your calls on this. Oh, hello, Herbie. It's Herbie and Harold, my friend from the BBC. How are you, darling? And it's time for the news with Darren Jones.
The Prime Minister has confirmed military leaders will meet in the UK next week to discuss plans for a peacekeeping force in Ukraine. Keir Starmer has proposed to move into an operational phase of holding a virtual leaders this morning. At least 60 people have been called in huge storms sweeping across much of the US. The country's National Weather Service has issued multiple tornado warnings across the south and Midwest. The cheers and the wind is ignited. It's set off to promote this storm stability space, which and scenarios planned to get delivered to the International Space Station turn into 9 months. NBC News is driving to close skies to emergency to the UK.
This is LBC.
At Tesco, we know that smell is everything. Fresh carrot pistachios is roasted Thomas is the sound of magic. The sound is not a little thing, it's everything. Tesco, every little helps.
They say money never sleeps, but don't let your pension keep you up at night. Instead, combine your outputs and manage them easily with Wealthify. And you can earn between £50 and £1,000 cash back when you transfer to your personal pension. That's why the smart one is with Wealthify. To start your transfer, download our app or go to wealthify.com. Wealthify is authorised and regulated by the Financial Conduct Authority. Minimum investments apply. Registration closes 31st of July. T&Cs apply. Capital at risk.
Dreaming of a new kitchen? At Wix, we have 70 kitchen styles to choose from, so you can find the perfect one. And with our spend and save offer, there's up to 50% off kitchen units. Visit your local Wix showroom to find the style that suits you, so you can feel as proud as a peacock with Wix. Terms and minimum spend apply.
You're home. Day done. Work done. Being crammed onto a packed bus done. Phoning your friend back, the one who likes to talk a lot done. And wearing a bra? Yeah, that's definitely done. Taking your bra off feels great, and so does getting your breast screening sorted. It can detect cancer long before you can even feel it, or more likely, put your mind at rest. So when the NHS invites you, save the date. It could save your life.
One voice can only do so much. But lots of voices can change the world. Whatever helping nature looks like for you. From spreading the word to becoming a member, or helping wildlife where you live. Find your flock with the RSPB, because together we fly. Act for nature now at rspb.org.uk. The RSPB is a registered charity.
This is LBC with Vanessa Phelps.
Is marriage only for the rich? We're going to be taking your calls on that. That's what the Federation seems to have found. Those are the latest discoveries. Me from Berkshire says, Vanessa, I met my husband in our first year at university. We were both aged 18. Neither of us is religious, so marriage wasn't something we saw any value in. We decided we'd like to transition to family age 30. We thought we had to get married because of generosity. We went to Vegas with 2 close friends as witnesses and had a drive-through wedding through the sun with the Christmas Eve. Still together age 51 and our relationship has not changed at all. But they got married, or indeed, we're being married. So we take your calls on 035567. Is this some parents see school as optional?
as you put it, began well before the pandemic. But what the pandemic did was gave it a huge acceleration, a huge boost, and it's tricky.
And so head teachers are finding, and form teachers are finding, that children don't show up on Fridays and Mondays, or they make
Indeed, yes, they are.
And make fleeting appearances, and you never quite know when they're going to be there and when they're not going to be there. What are the possible consequences of children not attending school? What happens to parents? What happens to children?
Well, what happens to parents at the moment is that they can be fined, and in extreme cases sent to prison. Unfortunately, there's no evidence at all that this works. I remember when a single parent of absolutely diving waterants was sent to prison, and press reporters talked to the girls, and they were very contrite and repentant, but in no time at all they were truanting again.
So if that doesn't work, if fines don't work, if even in very extreme cases imprisonment doesn't work, what do you suggest should happen?
Well, I think school needs to be a place where children are happy to go to, and it's not, unfortunately. And I think what you can see the problems. As regards to holidays, I think we should go back to the system whereby head teachers have discretion in the matter. I think that would probably clear up most of the problems. But as regards the more serious issue, which is that children increasingly don't want to go to school, I think schools need to be made places where...
It's got anything at all to do with children not wanting to go to school, and absolutely everything to do with parents not taking responsibility for waking their children up in the morning, getting them appropriately dressed, making sure they have breakfast, and then either walking, driving, or making sure that they go to school, isn't it? It's not because the children don't want to go to school that they don't go to school, is it?
It is, actually. I mean, I completely agree that there are always, and always have been, parents who don't do their parenting job properly, but most parents are quite conscientious and wish to do their parenting job properly. If school was a place that children like to be at, I don't think parents would very easily persuade them to take Fridays and Mondays off. There was a survey done in 2018, which is well before the pandemic, and more than 50% of children in years 10 and 11, that's what we used to call fourth year and fifth year, said that they, and I quote, actively disliked, unquote, school. Now, that's a very bad situation, isn't it?
Yes, but that's not the reason they're not there. They're not there because they don't like it. They're there because the parents whose responsibility it is to make sure that they go to school don't fulfil that responsibility because increasingly they see school attendance as optional, because office attendance is now so often optional. They feel exactly the same laissez-faire attitude to whether their kids go to school or not. They don't go into the office on Fridays and Mondays.
I really don't think that's the case. I don't think the children want to be there, and yeah, you may be right, the parents keyed in. It's extremely difficult to make the 15 or 16-year-old do as you want if they're desperate to do it. There's a fair amount of evidence that quite a lot of children now feel extremely anxious at school. This may be to do with the rise of social media and bullying. It may be to do with the fact that the teachers are so rushed off their feet that they don't know if they're coming or going, and the children don't feel that the place is somewhere which is welcoming them. I think what the government could do actually, Vanessa, is do a little bit of research. It should identify those schools that don't have these problems, and there are schools that don't have these problems, and it should try and identify what factors make these schools places that children want to be at, and have a look at other schools.
Well, I'll tell you what's going on according to this survey, which is conducted by the Teacher Tab app, and questioned 9,000 teachers and leaders. They revealed for over 4/5, 81% of respondents reported students missing school for family events. 74% noted absences, so that's not because they don't like school, it's because they're going to a family event. 74% noted absences due to school-related anxiety, so they're anxious, they don't like school very much. 61% mentioned people staying home because they were tired after a previous night's event. They're probably having such an uproarious time at the family celebrations that stopped them going to school in the first place. Nothing to do with not liking school. And 36% cited disputes between parents or carers, nothing to do with school. And furthermore, the poll found one in 8 educators have been informed of students who would prefer working online from home instead of attending school, which is exactly what their parents are doing in terms of work. They're working online from home, aren't they? It's a parental thing. It's not a children don't like school thing.
No. It's too easy to blame parents. I mean, obviously some parents are to blame, and some parents are very good. That's always been the case. There's no evidence at all that working from home influences children's decision whether or not to go to school.
There's no evidence at all that it should be the child's decision whether or not the child goes to school. It's a parent's responsibility to make sure a child attends school while they're of school age, isn't it? The children don't have the option. I suggest they take them to school and deliver them to school because that's where they're supposed to be. That's what I suggest.
Put them on a dog lead and drag them along.
Not dog lead, but just you have to go to school. That's a legal obligation and requirement, and I'm here to make sure you do. And let's go to school. I mean, unless it's a very acute anxiety, which means you can't get them through the school gate, in which case they definitely need some help and counselling. Thank you very much indeed for talking to Michael Pike, their former teacher and spokesperson campaign for state education. All right, we're talking about marriage, and we're talking about the fact that it's the rich who marry and the poor who don't. And the question is why? Is it the cost of the wedding? Is it because of benefit? If you marry, then somebody moves in with you, then you might get a benefit cut. Is it because there's no tradition of marriage at home? Or is it just because marriage looks less attractive than it used to? It's a bit like going to school. Let's discuss this with Joanne, who's a first-time caller in Plymouth. And let's get your calls in on this one. Are you married? And if not, why not? 0345 60600973. Hi, Joanne.
Hello, Vanessa.
Tell me about marriage, please.
I've never been married, and happy being single.
And how?
I don't think, it's not the deal and end all to be married. I find it boring to be in a relationship or marriage, I think.
Really? And has anyone ever asked you to marry them? Have you ever been sort of close to getting married in a long-term relationship?
No, not really.
No, not really. And
most of my life I've like been single. And I would just find it's like too much. To me, it's too much of an effort to try and find the right person.
It's certainly not easy. I would definitely agree with that. But tell me something. When you look at friends of yours who are in settled relationships and married or whatever, do you think, gosh, they don't seem all that happy, or do you think, wow, I wish I'd found someone that's just right for me the way they have?
I have seen a couple of friends who have been in relationships and it's not been so good. But I know that's not the case for everyone. And everybody's different when they're in relationships. It just has to be worked out.
Were your parents married?
Yeah, they were married, but they ended in divorce.
You see, that can be very off-putting, can't it? If your parents split up and it's heartbreaking for you, then it makes getting married seem like more of a lottery than it might have done if they were still happily married. And did they seem to expect you to get married, or was there no pressure to marry?
No, I have no pressure to marry. And I've got siblings that are married, and they've been married. They've been together like youngsters and still married.
Yeah. But when you look at them, you don't think it's for you.
No. I would find it boring with his marriage, I think. I'd want to see the same one.
That's what television's for. You sit there in silence, and that's why people scroll on their phones all the time. They can't think of a damn thing to say to each other. They have a good old look at the phone, and thank God we don't have to think of a conversational topic that interests us both. You're very honest, Joanne. Nice to talk to you. Joanne cannot see the point of getting married. She thinks it would be well boring, and to have to think of something to say to somebody else for years on end is something of a Herculean task and challenge, you have to agree. The number's 0345 60600973. The story is pretty simple. Getting married, isn't that what rich people do? This is the conclusion. Marriage is increasingly the preserve of the rich, with only 1 in 5 couples from poorer backgrounds tying the knot. This according to brand new research from the Marriage Foundation think tank. 71% of children born into high-earning families in 2022 had parents who were married, compared with as few as 20% among the lowest earners. So the marriage gap between the richest and the poorest has widened to a record 51%. Is the reason that you're not married because you come from a poor family? Is there another reason for that? 0345 60600973. If you're 0345 6060973. I'm Vanessa Phelps. This is LBC. The time 5:45.
Coming up at 6 on LBC, Natasha Devon.
Officials at Number 10 are reportedly trying to prevent a rebellion over proposed cuts to welfare payments. Is this a fight for the soul of the Labour Party?
Natasha Devon on LBC.
Kate's just off to work after sleeping in the best bed in the business. And my word, doesn't she look ready for anything? Something about her smile is just brighter. Her eyes seem glittier. And she just feels so much more Katier. Of course, it's no surprise really, because last night she slept at Premier Inn. And she got up to 15% off with Business Booker. Get better sleep for your money. Premier Inn. Rest easy. T's and C's apply.
You're really building that business, Josh. That's because you chose to bank with Virgin Money, earning cash back on your supplies, turning expenses into rewards. Everything from Sanders to Skipper. Again, you solved the complicated. But with Virgin Money's Amicam for Business now, UK experience NI General and 80 plus stocks and structures apply. Cashback rate of 0.25% back on account accounts with some Virgin Money is trading in the platform benefits.
New customers can swap us for the price of 11 at petsinnapickle.co.uk. Use code 12 for 11. T's and C's apply.
We're proud to announce that the Kia EV3 is UK Car of the Year 2025. It's the second year running that a Kia EV has won this award. With a spacious modern interior and class-leading electric range of up to 375 miles, it's no surprise. From March 31st to get 3.9% APR representative and 1 year free Kia Charge Plus. Book your test drive today. Search Kia EV3. Kia. Movement that inspires. Range based on test conditions and may vary. T's and C's apply. Kia Finance. Verified. Kia.com/UK/EV3 range.
I never thought of myself as the giver type. But I guess I am. I cook my housemate an extra delicious pot of stew after my long night shift. And I give blood when I can. Investing 1 hour of my time can save up to 3 lives. Like the life of my little cousin, Jace, who suffers from sickle cell. But you wouldn't know that by how cheeky he is. If you're the giver type, please book now at one of our London donor centres. Visit blood.co.uk today.
Grow big or go home with Lidl's massive garden event. Get a plant ladder stand for $14.99. A raised planter with cover for only $24.99. And a walk-in greenhouse just $39.99 with Lidl Plants. Now that's big on quality and always Lidl on price. Subject to availability, selected stores, GP only. Terms apply to lidl.co.uk/LPTV.
Vanessa Phelps on LBC. Call 0345 6060 973.
Is marriage only for the rich? This is from John. He says, Vanessa, my wife and I got married in 2016. And at that time, we were far from wealthy. The day cost £10,000 and included a church ceremony and a reception with barbecue for 100 people and evening entertainment. It was great. Instead of presents, we asked for a small contribution to the cost of the day. People were incredibly generous. Weddings do not have to cost £23,000. If you're listening to LBC right now and you managed to get hitched for much, much less than 23 grand, how did you do it? What did you do? What did you do that was economical but delightful? How was your wedding? And did you manage to get away with much less than £23,000? You've just about got time to get through. Do try 0345 606 0973. If your wedding was on a budget but gorgeous, give me a call. George says, Vanessa, enjoying the show. I've been with my partner now for 6 years and I'm 27. My partner is 29. I don't have any interest in getting married. Unsure what it actually achieves, to be honest. I think if you're happy with your partner, that doesn't change anything or make it any more secure. I would rather keep the money for us to have some holidays in the future. Let's talk to Diana in Raynham. Hi, Diana.
Oh, yes, Vanessa. I just want to say, I had a deathbed marriage. I married my husband 9 days before he passed away. Previously, no interest in getting married, outdated, I don't need a piece of paper, etc. And then my husband got diagnosed with terminal cancer. And it was explained to me that unmarried partners are very vulnerable. You wouldn't have any rights to organise a funeral. Everything you had joined would be classed as separate and would have to go through probate. Whereas if you're marital, it becomes everything joined automatically passes on. Yes. And people that the security, people don't speak about when one of you dies, how being unmarried can make you quite vulnerable. People do need to be made aware of it.
I mean, I would have thought people were aware of it. I would have thought this was something that everybody knows, that if you're married, then whatever one partner has can pass directly to the other partner without incurring any tax. I don't know if you did know that. And also, if you're married, then you're somebody's next of kin, whereas if you're not married, you're not somebody's next of kin. I thought that was something that was just so often discussed and so, out in the open that you would have known that. But it came to you as a big surprise, Anna, did it? Different and probably will forever, I suppose.
Yes, it was. And all this, it doesn't matter, it's only a piece of paper, it doesn't make any difference. It does, and I wish people do need to realise.
And tell me something, why hadn't you got married before? Had you really thought that it wasn't something you were interested in until then?
Not interested. Like, my parents had split when I was quite young, and I got involved with it, and I just didn't grow up in like a traditional family situation. And I was just very cynical that most marriages end anyway, so why bother? And I want my freedom to leave if possible.
And then you got married and you say you felt different. That's amazing. What an amazing story. Thank you very much indeed for ringing and sharing it. I really appreciate it, Dan. Thank you so much. Let's talk to Catherine in Bournemouth. Hi, Catherine.
Oh, hi, Vanessa. I love your show and I love you.
Well, you're lovely to say that. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much. It's really kind of you. Tell me about bit marriage. Are you married?
No. My partner left me in 2019 after 29 and a half years of living together. I thought very pleased with it as he just, I literally turned to the radio and said it. There is no such thing as a common law wife. That's something that really ruined my life. Because it doesn't mean that anything, but he turned to a minister from our house.
Just move your phone up a bit closer to your mouth, or we can't hear what you're saying. Speak into the phone, will you, please?
Oh, sorry, it's
That's
pretty
better.
bad line.
Made better by you putting the phone near your mouth. Yes, now we can hear you. But what do you want to say very quickly? Because obviously this is the end of the show. Quick,
What I
quick.
want to say is that any benefit payments
Yeah.
when the children reach 18 should call
Thank you very much indeed, though. Thanks for the show. Thoroughly enjoyed it. If you missed any of today's show, you can listen back and catch up on Global Player. We'll find all LBC shows to catch up on, as well as all Global's live radio stations. Download Global Player for free from your app store. Head to globalplayer.com. Coming up at 9 on LBC is the legal hour with Debbie Barno. And now it is the lovely Natasha Devon.
Thank you, Vanessa. In the second hour of the show after 7, I want to talk about the arts. Music, drama, dance and visual arts have been defunded and deprioritised in state schools since 2010, leading to calls for the upcoming curriculum review to bring them back. I want to know what impact did exposure to the arts at school have on you. But first, as the Prime Minister hosts his virtual summit to rally support for Ukraine, officials at Number 10 are reportedly trying to negotiate a different sort of peace, preventing a rebellion of MPs and a split within the government over proposed cuts to welfare payments. Whilst we don't know the exact details yet, the rhetoric preparing for these cuts has been distinctly, well, Tory. Is this a fight for the soul of the Labour Party?
On your radio, on Global Player, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 6 o'clock, the Prime Minister says it's time for Russia to come to the negotiating table so that the guns fall silent in Ukraine. Sir Keir Starmer hosted a virtual meeting of Western allies this morning to discuss next steps for a possible ceasefire between Ukraine and Russia. Meanwhile, the Ukrainian president says strong pressure must be applied to Moscow to bring them to talks. Volodymyr Zelensky has set out his top priorities.
Security is the key to a peace more reliable and lasting. Peace will be more reliable with the European contingent on the ground. And the American side as a backstop.
At least 70 people died in a huge storm that's sweeping across much of the United States. The country's National Weather Service has issued multiple tornado and severe thunderstorm warnings across the South and Midwest. Joy has 3 children and lives in Villa Ridge in Missouri and says her home has been destroyed.
We're just feeling very lost. This devastation is just awful. We're scared. We have to start over again. We're just worried. We didn't have renter's insurance, so we don't really know what we're going to do at this point. We're just trying to pack up our belongings and salvage what we can and start over.
4 people have been remanded in custody after being charged with murdering a woman in South Wales. Joanne Penny died after being shot in Talbot Green last weekend. LBC's Dan Wilson has more of this.
South Wales police say the 40-year-old may have been the victim of mistaken identity last Sunday. 3 men and a woman have now been charged with her murder, alongside a woman accused of assisting an offender. Officers are also questioning a 7th person as part of their investigation after arresting a 32-year-old man in Suffolk last night. Dan Wilson, LBC, Cardiff.
The captain of a container ship has appeared in court charged with gross negligence manslaughter following a collision in the North Sea. 59-year-old Vladimir Motin has been remanded in custody following the crash with an oil tanker on Monday. 1 sailor is presumed dead after being lost at sea. And there were cheers and applause as a long-awaited rocket set off to bring home 2 US astronauts stranded in space. Butch Wilmore and Sonny Williams' planned 8-day visit in the International Space Station turned into 9 months. LBC weather, many places dry with clear spells and light winds tonight. Clearer skies towards the southern parts of the UK, a low of -5. From Global's newsroom, for LBC, I'm Darren Jackson.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Natasha Devon.
Very good evening to you. It's just gone 3 minutes after 6. I'm Natasha Devon and I'm with you until 9 o'clock this evening, as ever. Matt's already been in touch on 84850 and said, Natasha, in my experience, the arts and particularly exposure to classical music are crucial to brain development. Thanks, mate, but you are an hour too early. That's what we're going to be discussing in the second hour of the show. For now, we are turning our attention to what is happening at number 10 this weekend. So we know, of course, we've been hearing in the news headlines that Sir Keir Starmer is bringing together 2 dozen of his international counterparts over a video link, and this is an effort to forge ahead with peacekeeping for Ukraine. But at the same time, behind the scenes, it's been reported that number 10 are trying to negotiate a truce with their own rebellious Labour MPs over the lack of support for planned cuts to disability benefits and wider spending squeeze in the spring statement in March. Now, apparently the objections to this go right up to cabinet level, so if they can't smooth things over, this could be really quite disastrous for the Labour Party. And it's important to emphasise at this point that we don't know exactly what these cuts to the welfare budget will involve. All we know is that Starmer and the Work and Pension Secretary Liz Kendall are poised to unveil sweeping changes to the welfare sector as early as Tuesday, and the government is aiming to make around £6 billion in savings from benefits payments. It's enough to worry a lot of people, though, seeing the headlines around this, and it's suggested that MPs are particularly worried about suggestions that personal independence payments, or PIP, which are payable even if somebody is in work and help to fund the extra costs associated with living with disability, could be frozen at current levels rather than increasing in line with inflation. That's going to have an enormous impact on people who rely on those payments and are, as we all are, trying to make their living in Britain during a cost of living crisis. I wanted to talk, though, more than the details of this announcement, which we're not yet sure of, about the rhetoric around it, the way that it's already being spoken about. And have a listen to this. This is yesterday, Rachel Reeves speaking to reporters about another sharp rise in the number of universal credit claimants.
It's not working for taxpayers, where in one of the richest countries in the world, what we're spending on sickness and disability benefits is going up every year at an unsustainable rate. And so we do need to reform the welfare system, but primarily to help more people fulfil their potential and get into meaningful employment with all the dignity, pride and higher incomes that come from it.
And no one would argue that ideally, in an ideal world, you would have the structure and dignity and pride that comes alongside being employed. Also, in an ideal world, having an ordinary job would be enough to fund an ordinary life, and you would be able to have your basic needs fulfilled, like secure housing. Neither of those things, unfortunately, are true in Britain in 2025. But this kind of rhetoric, about trying to suggest that there are enormous numbers of people who are swinging the lead and have quote-unquote mild mental health difficulties that have somehow managed to trick the people in charge of distributing PIP, despite the fact that it is such an involved and aggressive and lengthy and in some cases traumatic process. It just all feels a bit Tory to me. And that's why I want to ask you the question, do you think that this potential rebellion of MPs over this issue represents a battle for the soul of the Labour Party? 0345 606 0973 is the number to call. You can text 84850 or you can send a comment to me via your Alexa. You are, of course, welcome to say to me, Natasha, this is the only thing that the Labour Party can do in 2025. They are merely adapting to the environment and circumstances in which they find themselves. I'm here for that argument. You can also, of course, say, look, while these policies might look like austerity on the surface, at least there is more confidence under a Labour government that that money will be spent in the places where they say that it's going to be spent, that there will be hopefully less corruption and less cronyism. I think that that's probably true. But I'm talking more about the language that is being used by very high-profile people within the Labour Party. The Secretary of State for Work and Pensions, the Chancellor, the Prime Minister sound like Tories. And the worst aspects of the Tory party, the nasty party, the uncaring aspect of the Tory party, that's what they sound like to me right now. And I want to know whether you think I'm being unfair. 60600973 is the number to call. So I'm joined now by Sebastian Salek, who's a former Bloomberg political journalist. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. What do you make of the way that Labour have tried to prepare the public ahead of the announcement of these cuts?
Yeah, I think it's a really difficult one, and it's interesting to hear you talk about the rhetoric. I don't really hear that. I mean, if you cast your mind back to the early days of austerity, Cameron and Osborne, there was talk of benefit scroungers and all of that really horrible language. I just don't think we're hearing the same thing now. There's not that same demonisation of the people who need to claim benefits in order to be able to live. I think what we're seeing now really is a system that nobody would disagree is broken. The Labour Party coming into government